I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, October the 9th, brought to you in part by Macrocin by Bimeda. Macrocin is a bold, straight-shooting telithromycin injection that does what it's supposed to do, proven efficacy at an affordable upfront price. For more information, go to macrocin.com. Also, Joplin Regional Stockyards, lighter run for them here on this Monday feeder cattle auction. Only 4,000 head expected, and that's extremely light for them, especially this time of year when got a lot of calves moving, but the market's just kind of holding people off a little bit. Don't forget, Joplin Regional Stockyards got a special cow and bull auction coming up here on October the 18th. That's on a Wednesday starting at 4:30 in the afternoon. They've got several nice consignments already listed, including several breeding age bulls that'll be all papered and ready to go for you. To check out that list of consignments for the special cow and bull sale, go to joplinstockyards.com. Buyers or sellers market. And of course we talk about a buyer's market and a seller's market. It's all about demand and supply, of course, and demand responds to supply. Well, we saw our offerings, our receipts on our feeder cattle and calves. I mean, we're expecting them to balloon here this time of year, which they normally do as people start selling their spring-born calves this time of year. But the market's backed up so much here in the last week or two. You're seeing people hold those cattle back. Now, we saw those same producers, maybe not the very same ones, but the same type of producers, bring in calves to sale and yearlings too all summer long, when normally our receipts are really light. But the market was so good they couldn't believe it. They wanted to get in on it, cash in on some of that, and so they were bringing them to town. And it's surprising now how quick the spigot is turned off on our receipts in the sale barns. And then at the same time, we saw your fat cattle, which the market was lower, but we saw a huge movement of negotiated fed cattle sales in our 5-area feeding region, bigger than what we typically see, bigger than what we've seen pretty much all year here on a down market. And so it kind of makes you want to think, well, where are we at, buyers and sellers market? Well, let's talk about the calves. On the calves back this summer, and when the prices were going up, it was a seller's market. That we thought that we're going to run completely out of cattle, and everybody's swarming to get them put together because everything you bought and put a few pounds on made money. So people were sopping them up just as fast as they could get them. We were in a seller's market, and then here in the last couple of weeks have all of a sudden turned into more of a buyer's market. But the buyers can't get real excited about buying those calves because they tend to get sick this time of year, and we've got some extreme weather changes starting to occur. They're starting to get a little bit of a fall in the air, and we know it's coming. A lot of calves moving, and people are just not excited about having those calves because of the conditions. So it's kind of moving back and forth. The sellers shut it down. They shut down the supply, but and that's going to help the demand come back up, and it'll help the market problem a little bit. I assume that some of your calves and feeders will sell a little better this week than they did last week when the board was down so hard, because the runs have shut off so much. And even though we're in the time of the year that we see more cattle selling, we haven't seen much receipts. And like I told you, Joplin's not looking for a big run. Don't expect Oklahoma City to have as big a run as what they typically do, and none of your other sales either, because they're thinking this is just a little hiccup in the market, and they want to wait a week. They don't want to sell it on a down if we're going to continue to go up. But by holding this market back, it may help. By holding these cattle back, these calves, the receipts back, it may help in the short term, but it's going to hurt worse down the line because then that's just going to add to the bigger offerings coming up later in the fall, later in October, after more people have had trouble with calves, after the extremes in the temperatures are even wider, and all the things that typically happen in the fall are happening in the fall. But the buy, you know, the demand and the supply and the buyer's market and the seller's market works great with the calves, because we have free and open markets. We have negotiation, we have price discovery, we have all those things that we love, that markets respond to. Now, I mentioned the fat cattle trade a little bit a while ago. Well, we've only got 4 buyers, really. I mean, luckily we still have some regional type packers. Then they're the ones that set the market, because the big 4 would never do that. So we got an oligarchy there, and they control the market. They collude. They practice in unfair trading and do all the things that keep that market from being free and open. And it's always a buyer's market. So the market was down last week for the second or third week in a row. Why would we see all the cattle moving? Because it's always a buyer's market. And the reason it's always a buyer's market is because those big 4 packers and their oligarchy, they control the supply. So whenever you're controlling the demand and the supply, it's no longer a free market there. And of course the reason is because so many of your feedlots are either in association with a packer, or they have joined in to an AMA, an alternative marketing agreement there with your packers. And so we just don't see enough trade in our open cash negotiated market to really be fair. That's why you see a bigger movement on a down market, because yes, your packers want to sop up more of the cattle, and they want to build up their coffers quite a bit on a down market. Do your feedlots really want to sell more of them on a down market? Not really, but they've got an opportunity to sell them, and the packers will take them, and so they go ahead and let more go. But it doesn't really make sense in your normal rules of marketing there. But it's very frustrating whenever you see that, and I've noticed here in the last year or two that more and more of your small independent feedlots in your 5-area feeding region are starting to be forced to close because they are not in an alternative marketing agreement. If you're not in one of those AMAs, you don't have your cattle scheduled. You don't give them all to them in formulas. Those are all captive supplies. It's just really getting tougher and tougher and tougher to stay viable and to keep your gates open. And that is I've seen several deals that's happened like that. It's even worse if you really play hardball with those packers and you've got some desirable cattle and you try to get more for them. They don't like that. They don't like competition. They don't like you holding back your better cattle there and making them compete for them. They don't like that at all. And so if you're not complying with them, then they kind of blackball you where you can't get rid of your cattle at all. And when you can't get rid of your cattle, then you no longer have a viable feedlot. And we've seen that happen here, quite a bit here in the last year or two. And I think it'll happen more and more as we go forward here. But that's a frustrating part of the business. Let's talk about your board for last week, where we saw stiff losses there early to midweek last week. And it sure took a toll on the market. But your October live cattle futures, Monday we're up 22. We thought everything was good, and then Tuesday down $2.30, and then it was down a whole lot more on those that were out front because we're not going to see that much volatility on your spot cash market there. But Wednesday was back up 7 cents, Thursday down a quarter, Friday was up $1.12. Your October live cattle contract ended the week at 183.07, down $1.13 for the week, and that's about how much we lost in our cash market also. December live cattle futures ended the week at 186.67, down buck and a quarter. October feeder cattle, Monday was up 85. Tuesday was down $4.72 for October feeder cattle contracts, but all the further out contracts were down more than that. A lot of them over $5. Really tough last Tuesday on your feeder cattle futures. Wednesday was down another 82 cents. Thursday down 27 cents. Friday back up 87 cents on some profit taking there, but October feeder cattle ended the week at 248.37, down $4.10 for the week. Ouch. And that's pretty close to what we lost in the cash market too, except the futures is leading the cash market instead of the other way around. November feeder cattle down $4.03 for the week at 250.87. Your corn new crop December Chicago Board of Trade contracts ended the week at 492. That was up 15 1/4 cents a bushel. November new crop beans ended the week at 1266, down 9 cents. Kansas City hard red winter wheat for December 10 cents higher on the week at 673 3/4. Talk about your fat cattle trade in your 5-area feeding region negotiated up through Thursday, 73,700 head, and then saw a little bit more trade on Friday. That is big for today's times. We just don't see movements near that big. Your live sales of fat steers and heifers in the 5-area feeding region ranged from 181 to 184. That was steady to $2 lower. Your weighted average on live steers in the 5-area feeding region, 182.65, down about $1 up through Thursday. And it's not going to change much more than that with the little dab of late week sales we saw there. But dress sales ranged in price from 287 to 294.75. Not a lot of that above 290. 290 stopped most of your prices on the upside, and it was actually a very narrow trading range there. Your dressed weighted average for steers, 289.29. That was down about $1 also, but basically the Northern Plains traded from 182 to 183, steady to 2 lower. Dress sales 288 to 290, steady to 2 lower, and the Southern Plains traded all at 182 for the most part, about $1 lower. Let's talk about your box beef cutout values, or actually your little bit of Friday trade. I'll tell you about that. Iowa sold 1,600 head, 31,700 head for the week, 182 to 184 live, 288 to 290 dressed. Nebraska 1,300 head on Friday, 22,200 head for the week. All your sales in Nebraska were live at 184, and that was the best we saw all week. And Friday was the day to sell them. It seems like it's always better to hold out as long as you can to get the best price in your negotiated trade in the feedlots. Kansas, North Texas, neither one sold anything confirmed on Friday up through 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Kansas had moved 9,800 head for the week, was pretty respectable for them. And Texas moved a whopping nearly 13,000 last week, and that is huge for them. So, like I said, they don't really go with the laws of marketing, but it's a little bit frustrating whenever you don't have free and open markets there. Talk about your box beef cutout values. Your weighted average on all of last week's sales on choice, 299.94. That was 92 cents lower than the previous week's weighted average. And your late Friday sales were about $2 higher than that, back over the $300 mark at 302 for late Friday. Your select weighted average on all of last week's sales, 275.60, down 271 compared to the previous week's weighted average for select. And late Friday sales were about steady with that. On the weighted average movement, your choice select spread was $24.34, and a pretty decent movement again at the lower price levels of 667 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. Your slaughter, disappointing again, but not as light as the previous week, but 628,000 harvested last week. That was 16,000 better than the previous light week, but still 41,000 less than the same week a year ago. Talk about what else is going on. Ever Ag. You must continuously plan to protect your operations profitability along with limiting downside risk while facing volatile markets, which it seems that we're always facing. Navigate your risk management with Ever.ag. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market, your real-time index based on the 800-pound steer up through your middle 12 states there. Ended the week at 245.92, down $3.52 for the week, and that's a 7-day moving average, computed just like your CME cash feeder cattle index with the sales that we are in. But your CME cash feeder cattle index is still hanging up over 250. When you're very, very lucky to get that for a whole load of fancy, just flat 800-pound steers, you can't hardly hope for better than 250. And still your CME cash feeder cattle index is hanging up over that. And what is that doing? It's costing people that have their LRPs coming due because it's hanging up there whenever your market's really not that great. But that's not my issue, but it's just something that I noticed there. Cash feeder cattle in your sales last week were $2 to $6 lower. Calves were very uneven, like you would expect moving into mid-October. Those that are long weaned and had their shots selling really well. Those that are short weaned, no shots, not too good. Those that are fresh off the cow that morning, better than the short weaned ones, especially if they got a round of shots in them and put back on the cow. But what guys really want when it comes to calves are long weaned, 60-day plus weaned calves, but calves that are weaned and then turned back out by themselves is what they really want. If you can find those, they bring a big price everywhere. The market was still good on Saturday, and I'm complaining about the market being lower. It's still very handsome in the whole scheme of things, guys. You know, the sky has not fallen. Fort Scott livestock market in Fort Scott, Kansas sold 146 steers, weighed 775 on Saturday. They bring 263. Thought that was pretty impressive. Look at Crawford livestock market in Crawford, Nebraska. Now that's Rich and Alicia Robertson's sale barn there. And look, you know, I've been talking about how the demand for these middleweights, that's what everybody wants, especially these farmer feeders. They're wanting to buy these middleweights, the 6 and 7 weight cattle, put a lot of weight on them with their cheap homegrown corn there, or silage, and make those work. And they will work for you, and they will pencil out. But look at these 6-weight cattle in Crawford, Nebraska. They had several very impressive strings there. The quality would be outstanding, of course, there in that part of the country. But look at all these 6-weight strings of steers in Crawford, Nebraska, bringing from 283 to 290, 250, weighing in the 6s, and a lot of them deep in the 6s, guys. That is very impressive whenever you start thinking about you know, how many 6-weight calves we got coming and how many are going to be fancy. I don't know if the market will hold those kind of numbers or not, but they were bringing that in Crawford on Friday, guys. How about a National BeefWire stick-out sale of the day for late last week or over the weekend? And it was a Saturday sale at Imperial, Nebraska, at the Imperial auction market there. About 2,800 head on offer. Look at this automated marker report through Cattle Market Central. Look at your best tested weights. Very impressive. 229 head of 4-weight steers in Imperial, Nebraska, average 465 with a weighted average price of $325.73. How about 338 head of 5-weight steers? They average 541, weighted average price $315.46. 249 head of 8-weight steers, kind of jumped the gap there. Those 8-weight steers average 849, so right there in the middle at 248.22. Imperial, Nebraska, your 8-weight steers are averaging 248, and somehow the CME cash feeder cattle index is sitting way over 250. Something ain't right. How about the heifers? 333 head of 4-weight heifers, average 450 at 320.92 on the heifer calves, guys, and 928 head of 7-weight heifers. Ain't too many people keeping heifers back in that part of the country, guys. 928 head of 7-weight heifers for sale, average 752 at 247.10. How about Santa Teresa, New Mexico? Santa Teresa Livestock Auction, selling all Mexican cattle, just imported, come across the border there, and they're ready for you guys. You may think this is very impressive. You may think that you want to buy something like this, but 103 of those hard weaned steers weigh 467, bring 285. You can get on to DVAuction.com, view and bid that sale every Friday, guys. How about Bluegrass Stockyards in Richmond, Kentucky? Jim Dawes does such a good job there. Look at these steers in Richmond, Kentucky, standing in the ring. 108 head of 998-pound steers. Now that's a big swath of 1,000-pound steers in Kentucky, guys. They bring 227.50. Put a pencil to them, and don't forget to include the freight that it's going to take to send them somewhere to feed, guys. How about St. Ange Livestock? My buddy Justin Tupper there sells calves high. 72 steer calves weigh 515 pounds on Friday in St. Ange, South Dakota. Bring 337. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere late last week or over the weekend, your Macrison, no BS, top quote for the day, come out of Winter, South Dakota at Winter Livestock Auction. It was 75 steers, weigh 732, bring 282.50. And that's your feeder flash for Monday.